Thomas is an engine on the island of Sodor, with 6 small wheels, a short stumpy funnel, a short stumpy boiler, and a short stumpy dome. And the most important thing he has is his 2 faithful coaches, Annie and Clarabelle, the ladies that run his branch line. No matter where they are, the coaches and Thomas are always seen together. Annie and Clarabelle often moan about Thomas's speed, but when they do, Thomas takes care and slows down. Sometimes when Thomas is feeling lonely, he'll take the coaches along with the goods train to give him some extra support. The only thing the coaches would change were the races with Bertie that Thomas always has. But overall, in rain or shine, the coaches are always by his side. Even when Thomas is too stubborn to put on his snowplow, the coaches are there to support him along the way. Early one morning, Thomas was in the yard at the big station. He was about to go into the coach sidings to find Annie and Clarabelle. "What a nice day it is," said Thomas. As Thomas went into one siding, he looked left, then he looked right, and he couldn't see Annie and Clarabelle. So like that, Thomas puffed away to the next siding. "Oh," groaned Thomas. "Oh, where are my coaches?" he said. "Well, Thomas," said his driver, "the only thing we can see are some old branch line coaches. They may be worn, but they'll have to do." These old coaches sat in a siding and they hadn't been touched in years. They were rotting away. "I don't want these old smelly coaches," said Thomas to his driver. "I want Annie and Clarabelle." Thomas got more and more upset with himself. He really wanted his old coaches back. Once he had coupled up to the coaches, he gave a big whoosh of steam and left the station. He was not happy. "Oh, these old red coaches, all they're worth is scrap," angrily tooted Thomas out of the yard. Leaving the yard, the coaches rocked and rattled. With crackles and pops, the sound of the coach's rotting wood was cracking. "Oh, these good-for-nothing coaches," said Thomas. "Once I'm done with you, you're going to the scrapyard," he said to them. The inside of the coaches wasn't any nicer. The passengers didn't like them. Just then Percy puffed in. "Hello, Thomas," said Percy. "Hello, Percy," said Thomas. Percy was hauling a long line of trucks from Farquhar. "Thomas," said Percy, "that's not Annie and Clarabelle." "Don't I know it," said Thomas. "They look over 200 years old." "They can't be that old, Percy, because that's how old the railways are." And like that, Thomas puffed away. Later on, Thomas was at a Sportsfield halt, and he heard a familiar whistle. It was James. "Hello, James," whistled Thomas. "Get out of my face, I'm not in the mood," replied James. "Oh, how come?" said Thomas. "Well, for starters, that good-for-nothing fat controller gave me some tar wagons. We all know my history of those." "What do you like, James?" said Thomas. "Anything to keep your red paint shining." Be quiet, you. I've had enough of your tricks for today," James snorted as he puffed away. "Wow," said Thomas. "Someone's in a mood." And with that, Thomas's signal turned green and off he went. As Thomas made his way to Trotter's pig farm to drop off Mr. Trotter, a door hinge was quite stiff. When they got off, the door wouldn't close. "Oh, what's wrong with this door?" said the guard. I don't know, said Thomas's fireman. But it looks like we're going to have to leave the coach behind, replied the driver. And with that, the fireman uncoupled the coach and off they went. Be careful, Thomas, said his driver. We don't want to overrun any platforms now we don't have a brake coach. Ignoring his driver's words, Thomas came into Maithwaite too fast and overshot the platform. Oh dear, said Thomas. Now look what I've done. Now what did I say? Stated Thomas's driver. I'm sorry, I know I shouldn't have done that, Thomas replied. And then in the corner of his eye he noticed a brake van in a siding. But inside was a rather unhappy guard. I won't lend you my brake van, he said. I'm having a cup of tea. But we need to use it, said Thomas's driver. We don't want to overrun any more platforms and cause more confusion and delay. Sir, you owe me a cup of tea, said the guard. And like that, Thomas went to bump into the brake van. When Thomas bumped too hard, it knocked the guard's tea over. Look what you've done now, you silly engine. You and your driver owe me 2 cups of tea. Oh, do be quiet, said Thomas. Once the brake van had been coupled, Thomas went to run round the train. Ready, Thomas? Said his driver. Yes, peeped Thomas in reply. As Thomas was about to pass by Mrs. Kindly's cottage, she was waving outside. Hello, Mrs. Kindly, peeped Thomas. Hello, Thomas, said Mrs. Kindly. As Thomas arrived at Hackenbeck, he felt rather unwell. Oh, these silly coaches giving me axle ache. Next, I might pop a piston. When Thomas was about to arrive at Farquhar, he noticed there was oil on the tracks. Oh no, said Thomas. It's that devious diesel. As he puffed in, he couldn't see a sign of him other than the oily tracks. But instead of diesel, it was the Topham Hatt. Thomas, he boomed. You're late. I'm sorry, sir. You see... As Thomas was explaining his story, the sound of a familiar horn rustled in. Oh dear, groaned Diesel. It's that silly Steamy again. Oh no, and the fat controller. So that's where Annie and Clarabelle have been, stated Sir Topham Hatt. Hehehe, chuckled Thomas. Now who's gotten caught? I'll be quiet, you silly Steamy. Oh, Thomas, we've had the ride of our life. Oh, indeed we have, Annie. It has been dreadful, Thomas. You're too right, Clarabelle. First we had the quarries, and then we were at Vickerstown earlier this morning. But our axles do hurt. I'm sorry, sir, said Diesel to the Topham Hatt. I wanted to pull passengers for once. I promise, said Diesel. I won't do it again, sir. No, you won't. Not after what I've heard you've put these coaches through. Now, Diesel, I want you to go take these old coaches to the scrapyard. And as for you, Thomas, I want you to go run around and collect Annie and Clarabelle, and we can go home, sternly stated Topham Hatt. I'm on it, sir. Anything to get my old coaches back, peeped Thomas, and off he went. Said Topham Hatt. Diesel, stop sitting around and get moving. Because of all your confusion and delay you've caused today, you're going straight to Barrow in Furness tomorrow. And then they can decide what to do with you. And like that, Topham Hatt went into the station building to have a cup of tea. Now that silly controller, said Diesel. Always bossing me about. At least I get to see my Diesel friends. And like that, Diesel slithered away. Oh, when is Thomas coming back, Clarabelle? Said Annie. I don't know, Annie. Oh, there he is. Here, Thomas, said Annie and Clarabelle. Oh, hello, your ladyships. Let's get going. We can't stop. And without stopping, Thomas puffed past them. Nice conversation, said Clarabelle. Once Thomas had aligned himself on the right side and he bumped into the coaches. Oh, Thomas, we haven't missed that. Oh, be quiet, you two, whistled Thomas. And it was back to the old days of those two bickering. That fussy engine, said the coaches, but Thomas knew they loved him really. Once Thomas was backed into Farquhar, he whistled to let the coaches know he was about to leave. Don't forget Sir Topham Hatt, said Clarabelle. What would I do without you two, whistled Thomas. You'd most likely be in a ditch, said Clarabelle. laughed Annie. Thomas, said Clarabel. It's time to go, said the coaches, and off Thomas went. He was happy to finally have his coaches back. As they made their way back into Knapford, they kept bickering along the way. Well, you could go a little bit slower, said Clarabel. Oh yes, you're too right, Clarabel, said Annie. And onwards they argued all the way to Knapford. But everyone was happy to be with each other again.